Hello and welcome to your Goodwill Taxes video, and this video is about credits and it's found in section G of your 4012. So we have covered what happens with our income, ways to reduce our income through adjustments. That brings us to AGI, adjusted gross income. Then we learned that we can subtract standard deductions, the standard deduction rather, or itemized deductions. And then from there we figure out what our taxable income is. And again, your software is going to do all of those types of calculations for you. You just have to understand how these items flow through the tax form. So once we calculate the tax amount, then we have an opportunity to reduce the taxes that the taxpayer owes through the use of credits. And there are two kinds of credits. There are non-refundable and there are refundable credits. Now the credits are found on Schedule 3, well the non-refundable credits anyway, are found on Schedule 3, and there are a few of them. There's not a lot. But the total from those is found on line 55 and carried back to line 12. Now you're looking at this schedule thinking these are numbered really odd, and they are. I'm hoping that the IRS smooths this out over the course of years, but yes, they are numbered oddly, and so you're not the only one thinking that. So the line 55 then would report back to line 12 on the 1040. So let's start to talk about those non-refundable credits first. The difference between a refundable credit and a non-refundable credit is that a non-refundable credit says you can only get a credit until you max out the amount of tax that you owe. You can't get any credits beyond what you owe. A refundable tax credit says you can get credit beyond what you actually owe in tax. And so our non-refundable credits are foreign tax credit, education credits, retirement saving contribution credits, child tax credits, child and dependent care credit, credit for elderly and disabled, and then credit for other dependents. This is a new credit this year. And so I have given you the pages or the sections where you can find the details about these credits. Let's talk just briefly about some of them. The child and dependent care credit. So you work and you put your child in child care. There is a credit for the amount of money you pay to the child care provider, provided the child qualifies, provided the what you've paid qualifies, provided your situation qualifies. So let's talk about some of those qualifying factors, and you're going to find this in your 4012 on page G5, this little table. And basically expenses are only for parents who work as a general rule. Certain exceptions do apply for taxpayers who are going to school. Let me give you an example of something that would not qualify. So let's say that you are a stay-at-home mom and you just need time away. And so to get that time away, you have set it up with the daycare that you can bring your child there for maybe a half a day every day. Well, if you don't work, you are not going to qualify for this credit simply because it is for parents who work. That exception of parents who go to school, however, would allow you to claim the credit if you were dropping off the child so that you could go to class. The taxpayer must present the Social Security number or EIN for the daycare provider. There are no exceptions to this. The taxpayer, if you want to claim this credit, must submit the EIN or the Social Security number of the provider. That is going to force taxpayers to be using reputable providers. A provider who doesn't want to give their EIN or their social security number is a provider who is probably not going to claim the income that you pay. And if they're not going to claim that income, you can't claim the credit. So there is a screening sheet on page G6 of your 4012, and that is going to answer a lot of different questions about scenarios that you may see. The actual credit is reported on Form 2441, and it's carried over to line 49 of the Schedule 3. The Child Independent Care Credit is a highly used credit. You will see this come in the door a lot. Another credit you will see a lot of is the Retirement Savings Contribution Credit. And there is, of course, in your 4012 on page G9, the screening sheet, which is going to answer questions for you about different scenarios that you are faced with. But examples of the types of contributions. So you've got taxpayers who make contributions to traditional or Roth IRAs. They have salary reduction contributions. They've got 401k plans. They've got Section 403 annuities. They've got a number of different ways of contributing to retirement. And so when our taxpayers contribute to retirement, there is a credit for doing that. So if you make eligible contributions to a retirement plan, you can claim the credit if all of the following apply. So your taxpayer cannot be under age 18, they cannot be a full-time student, no one else such as their parents can claim them, and they have, actually that should be removed because exemptions went away. So no one else can claim them, but we don't have exemptions anymore. That is going to appear on line 51 of the Schedule 3. That's another highly used credit. A third highly used credit is the child tax credit. So if you have children, in the prior years you would have noticed that you would have gotten a $1,000 credit for every child. This year, that credit has increased from $1,000 to $2,000 per qualifying child. Now, a qualifying child is a child who is under 17. Part of this credit may become refundable in the form of an additional child tax credit. And so I've highlighted here the charts that are on page G12, and that is the child tax credit, which is the non-refundable credit, and then the additional child tax credit, which is the refundable portion of the child tax credit. On page G13, you're going to find your screening sheet, which is going to address a number of different scenarios that you could be faced with. The next credit I'm going to cover just briefly is the credit for elderly or disabled. There is a screening sheet on page G17 for elderly or disabled. So if you have somebody you think may qualify for that credit, then you should go to that screening sheet. The last credit that is non-refundable is the new credit for other dependents. This is a brand new credit, and the page that refers to this credit is G16 in your 4012, and the credit was put in place to handle those people who may have somebody in their household who no longer is eligible for the child tax credit, but is still living under their roof and they are still caring for this person. So read this sheet on credit for other dependents. It's new and you don't want anybody to miss out on it if they are qualified to take it. those are the main non-refundable credits that you are going to see. Now, the refundable credits, there's even less of those. And those come in some pretty big forms though. One of those is called the Earned Income Credit, and another one is the Education Credits, specifically the American Opportunity Credit. So, Earned Income Credit. So for a taxpayer to qualify for Earned Income Credit, they must have earned income. And the more earned income they have, the higher the credit becomes until it peaks out. Once it peaks out, the higher their income becomes, the less their income or their earned income credit is. And so it's kind of like a bell curve in that the taxpayer increases their amount of earned income until they plateau, and then when they go even higher, they're going to decrease that earned income. The information referring to the earned income credit, that's going to appear on page I-1 and I-2. So you'll definitely want to access these two tables. This will be something you see a lot of. And there are a lot of errors that happen in filing for earned income credit, and so the IRS has a very watchful eye on the tax returns that come in claiming earned income credit. So you want to make sure that you do not make any of these filing errors that you see here. To claim earned income credit, you're going to get more of the credit if you have a qualifying child. So who is a qualifying child? So if you look on page I-4 of your 4012, it's going to give you, again, that screening page of what a qualifying child might look like. Now you can also qualify for earned income credit without a qualifying child. It's a lot more difficult to qualify without earned income credit, or without a qualifying child rather. Your income is going to have to be severely low in order to qualify for this. I have had clients qualify for earned income credit without a qualifying child. So if you do have somebody with extremely low income, you may want to take a look at this and see if they qualify. If we're dealing with a qualifying child, however, one thing we have to be aware of is how to treat circumstances when we have a child that qualifies for more than one person. So your 4012 page I-5 is going to deal with what happens if you have a qualifying person for more than one, or qualifying child rather, for more than one person. Education credits offer some form of refundable credit. So education credits are found in section J of your 4012, and specifically on pages 4 and 5 you're going to see these two areas. Now this form here is going to address two types of education credits. We're going to have the Lifetime Learning Credit and the American Opportunity Credit. And all of the questions you might have regarding those two credits are listed here. Basically, in general, the Lifetime Learning Credit is for those lifetime learners, those people who go on and get master's degrees, doctorate degrees, and continue their education in a qualified institution. The American Opportunity Credit is specifically for those beginning their educational journey. And so again, make sure you are looking at J4 and J5 to take a look at those distinctions in the credits. Specifically, the American Opportunity Credit has a refundable portion. And so you want to make sure that if somebody qualifies, you want to make sure, first of all, that they do qualify for the American Opportunity Credit. And then you want to be cognizant of their age, because a student under the age of 24 claiming the credit, you will need to go through this worksheet. So that completes the section on credits. Refundable and non-refundable credits. You are going to want to get as many credits for your taxpayer as they qualify for.